Hello, welcome back. We are going to continue on with Moses' life, and today we're going to read the story of the burning bush. Moses was watching his sheep in the hot, dry desert. Suddenly he saw a strange sight. Flames of fire came from a bush, but the bush did not burn up. Moses squinted his eyes. He looked around the bush one way. He looked around the bush the other way. "Moses, Moses," said a loud voice. Moses was scared. "Here I am," he said. "Take off your shoes," the voice thundered. "The place where you are standing is holy ground." Moses kicked off his sandals, keeping his eyes on the flaming bush. "I am the God of your fathers," the voice said. Moses hid his face. He was afraid to look at God. "I have heard my people crying in Egypt," God said. "My people are hurting, and I have come to save them." "Wow," thought Moses. "How will God do this?" "Go," said God. "I am sending you to Pharaoh to ask him to let my people go." "Me?" said Moses. "Who am I to go to Pharaoh? Who am I to lead your people?" He threw himself down onto the ground before God, but he kept one eye on the burning bush. "I will be with you," God said. Moses trusted God. He was willing to do everything God said. God gave Moses the words and the power he needed to talk to Pharaoh and lead the people out of Egypt. Now this week we're going to do something a little different. Why don't you do a little fun time and maybe hide behind a piece of furniture calling Moses and have someone play the part of Moses. And then you can switch places to see how Moses might have felt. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you for letting us join you today. We are so glad to be here. So we want to talk to you a little bit about the story you just heard. Who was the story about that we just heard?
Moses.
That's right, it was about Moses. And he saw something really special.
A burning bush.
A burning bush. It was a bush that had flames and fire,
But it
wasn't burning. Did he smell anything? I don't know.
No.
Did he see anything? Not really, not walking around. Did he hear something?
Yes.
He did. What did he hear?
God's voice.
He did. He heard God's voice. And what was God telling him?
To go to the Pharaoh.
That's right, to go see Pharaoh and tell him to let his people go. So we thought that we would go ahead and make a special craft today to remind us of this story about Moses with the burning bush. Now today you'll need some special materials, but you should be able to have all of these materials in your home. So a couple things you're going to need: some glue and some scissors. We're also going to need a couple writing materials. We'll need a pencil and a marker. Okay, and then the last few things we'll need is we need some tissue paper, some red and yellow, whatever color works for you. We thought maybe colors that would be like a fire. And the last thing you need is some paper. Like we used a paper sack, but you could also use newspaper or just brown paper, whatever works for you. The first thing we did is we took our brown paper bag and we went ahead and opened it up. So we cut the end off of it and then opened it to kind of make a big piece of paper. So here we have our big piece of paper, and then all we did with our marker is we drew
A bush.
a bush on there. You can see where Lincoln's already drawn. Just an outline. We don't have anything else on there. The second step, or the next thing you'll need to do, is take your tissue paper and you're going to cut it into strips of paper. So just long strips. And as soon as you have it cut into long strips, then you're going to cut it and make little tissue squares. So we took these squares straight from the long strips of paper. And we did it with both our red and our yellow. So you can see that. As soon as we have our tissue paper squares ready, then this is the part where you're going to use your pencil, but you're not using it to write. You take your tissue paper, let's hold it up, and you hold the square out, and you're going to put it face down in your palm, and you're going to put, here, let's put it here so they can see. Oh, it flies down. You're going to take the tissue paper like this, take your pencil, put it right into the middle, you're going to squish up the sides, just like that, and then you're going to hold it on the end. As soon as you have it held on the end, you open your glue stick. And then you're going to gently take the pencil and you're going to dab it on the end of the glue stick. And then if you show them what the end looks like. If you see our little glue on the bottom. Now as soon as you do that, you're going to take your tissue paper and you're going to put it onto your burning bush somewhere and you're going to hold it. And you can count if you want to. Maybe you can count by 2s to 20 or by count 1 to 10. And then as soon as you do that, you stop, You're going to let go of the, I don't know if it'll hold this way, take the pencil out for me. You take the pencil out, and then your tissue paper should stay on the paper. Now, you're going to do this with all of your squares, and you're going to keep going until your burning bush has red and yellow all over it to show the flames. Here is an almost ready burning bush. This one doesn't have enough yet. We should add some more to it. But this is our burning bush that we think you could add all the tissue paper flames to it. Now there is room on here to go ahead and write your Bible verse to help you remember the story about Moses and the burning bush. So let's go over the materials we used and how we did it one more time. Okay. So what did we use? Do you remember?
A marker, a pencil, some tissue paper, scissors, and a glue stick, and a paper bag.
That's right. And remember, if you don't have a paper bag, you can just use regular paper, whatever works for you. Remember, you cut open the paper bag, you draw your burning bush, go ahead and cut up your tissue squares. Then remember, it's that special project where you take the tissue square, you put it on the end of your pencil, pull it up, make a little point to it, and dab it gently. Remember, a little dot goes a lot, so take a little tiny dab of your glue, and then sticking that little tiny dab on top of your paper bag. Here, you want to hold it this time? There we go. I'll just lay it down. You count from 1 to 10, pull out your pencil, and hopefully you have one of your flames now on your burning bush. Now, do you think this will help remind us of the story of Moses and the burning bush? I think so. And then after we're done, we will decorate it with as many pieces of flame as we can, and then go ahead and write our Bible verse at the top to remind us of the story of Moses being told by God to go see Pharaoh and tell him, "Let my people go. Let those Israelites not be in slavery anymore." Well, thank you for letting us join you today and showing you our special craft.
Thanks. Bye.
Hi, good to see you guys again. So this week we're talking about the burning bush, and Moses is an adult now. If you remember last week, Moses was a baby in the basket. Remember that? So now, not only is he an adult, he's married, he's a shepherd now, and he doesn't live in Egypt. Do you know why he's not in Egypt anymore? Well, it's kind of important. So if you remember, he was adopted by Pharaoh's daughter. So he grew up in the palace, but he wasn't an Egyptian. Remember? So one day, when he was a teenager, he, I guess, was out from the palace, and he saw an Israelite slave being abused by an Egyptian, someone that was in charge of the slaves. Moses killed the Egyptian. He snapped. And then he ran away. Pharaoh wanted to kill him for killing an Egyptian. So Moses escaped. He ran away. Now Moses is married. He lives far away from Egypt. He's actually a shepherd. He works for his father-in-law Jethro. So we're going to go ahead and jump into, something else. In Bible times, do you know where people believed God lived on earth? Any ideas? Well, there was one mountain, and they believed God lived on top of that mountain, and it was called Mount Horeb or Mount Sinai. It had two different names. And Mount Horeb talks about the wilderness around it. It was very barren around this mountain, and they believed God lived on top of it. Well, guess where Moses lives now? He lives near that wilderness, and he was a shepherd, which means he wandered all around with the sheep so that they could find enough to eat. So he was near that mountain. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the story, and I think I have my Bible, and it's, again, Exodus 3, chapter 3, verses 1 through 15. So we're going to kind of go through it step by step. So we know that Moses worked for his father-in-law Jethro, and that he was out wandering he came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And then the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flames of fire from within a bush. Do you remember when you just heard the story earlier? Why did Moses go over to the burning bush? Did he see the angel? This is what it says. So Moses thought, I will go over and see this strange sight, why the bush does not burn up. So if you remember, if his job was out in the wilderness all the time with the sheep, he knew how things were supposed to look. And a bush on fire that didn't burn up definitely caught his attention. So when Moses goes over to it, the Lord calls to him 2 times. He says, Moses, Moses. That's very common throughout the Bible whenever God is talking to someone, to say their name twice. And Moses says, here I am. And God tells him 2 things. First is, don't come any closer. And the second is to take off your sandals, take off your shoes. Do you remember why? Let's see. For the place where you are standing is holy ground. Wherever God is holy. So that's why you take your shoes off out of respect. And then he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Now, back in Bible times, family and where you came from was super important. And interestingly enough, the God of Jacob. We just learned about Jacob recently. Remember Joseph and his 11 brothers? And how Joseph was sold into slavery in Egypt? Well, his dad was Jacob. That's who God is referencing. So Moses would have known who this was. And if you remember, Moses really is an Israelite, but he grew up in the Pharaoh's household as an Egyptian, but he didn't really belong there. And now he's living with his father-in-law, but he doesn't really belong there either, because guess what? They view him as an Egyptian, so he never really feels like he belongs anywhere. And all of a sudden, God's telling him who his family is. Let's see. Oh, and then do you remember what God talks about next? In verse 7, he talks about how he knows the Israelites need his help, that the Israelites are slaves in Egypt. I have heard them crying out because of their slave drivers, and I am concerned about their suffering. So I have come down to rescue them. And he actually says where and how that's going to happen. The where is, so I have come down to rescue them. I'm reading verse 8. From the hand of the Egyptians, to bring them out of that land into a good, spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey. You heard that before? Yeah, so they'll have everything they need. And then he said, the home of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, and Hivitites, and Jebusites. Those are tongue twisters. I'll be honest with you. You just kind of say them really fast. That's what I've learned. But to us, the names of those people don't really mean anything, right? But in Bible times, it would have meant something to Moses. He would have an idea where those people lived. So God's telling him where the Israelite slaves eventually will go. So that means something to him. So he's telling them that. Let's see. And then in verse 10, listen to what God says. So now go. I am sending you. He is sending Moses to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. How would you feel if God told you you were going to go back to where you were considered a murderer and you were going to convince the king, the Pharaoh, to let all the slaves go? That would be pretty scary. So you know what Moses says? But Moses said to God, this is now in verse 11, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" And God said in verse 12, "I will be with you." Remember, we're never alone. It might feel like we're alone, but God is always with us. Let's see. And then he actually told Moses that you will bring the people back here and worship me on Mount Horeb. And let's see. Then Moses says, well, okay. So suppose I go to the Israelites and I say to them, "The God of your fathers has sent me to you." And they ask me, "What is his name?" What should I tell them? It's a fair question. Why would the Israelites believe him, right? God said to Moses, "I am who I am. This is what you are to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you." There's something that we need to remember. Back in Bible times, like there weren't computers. There was a lot of learning that happened from stories you were told. In the Old Testament, that's what they had then. It's like the first half of the Bible. Those stories had lots of laws and lots of rules, and that's how you were supposed to live back then. That's how it was. And a lot of when they worshiped and they prayed, they called God different names. It all meant God. But there was like the God of love, and it was just a little different back then. But there was one name of God that they were not allowed to say when they were worshiping or when they were praying, because it was such a special name. And it's called it's Yahweh, and it means Lord. So when Moses would go to the Israelites and say, "I am has sent me," that means Yahweh has sent me, that would be something very special to the Israelites, and they would actually understand that it was God. So that was almost like a special gift that he gave to Moses, that Moses could say that. Let's see. And then here's the last verse we're looking at today, which is 15. God also said to Moses, "Say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent me to you." So that's important too, because he's telling him the family. And remember, back then that was super important. "This is my name forever, the name by which I am to be remembered from generation to generation." We still would do that today. So it's passed on from generation to generation. So what we know is God had a plan for Moses. Remember, Moses was an Israelite boy born when the Pharaoh wanted all Israelites boys killed. That didn't happen. And not only did that not happen, but Moses was raised by the Pharaoh's daughter. He was in a very special place. And when he grew up, he saw his people, the Israelites, being hurt and treated very badly. And he got so mad he killed someone. So he left. And now God's telling him, "Go back. And I'll be with you. And you're going to help save my people." God had an amazing plan for Moses, and he didn't leave him alone. He was with him. And he's with us. There's amazing things that we are to do, and sometimes we know it and sometimes we don't, and that's okay. Sometimes just being a good friend is an amazing gift to someone. So we're going to stop here today, and I have to admit, I haven't looked at what we're going to talk about next week, so it'll be a surprise to all of us. But I hope that gives you an idea that God can use us in amazing ways. And he has interesting ways of getting our attention, like a bush that doesn't burn up, that just keeps burning and burning and burning. Pretty special. Can you pray with me, please? Thanks. God, thank you for this week. Thank you for bringing us back. Thank you for allowing us to still learn from things that happened so long ago. Thank you for loving us the way you do and using us and helping us to help others. Please keep us safe this week so we can see each other again next week. Amen. See you guys. Bye.